fair one.
And hello and welcome to another edition of the Frasers Property Perspectives podcast. My name's Natasha Roberton and I'm here today with the new Executive General Manager of Frasers Property, Cameron Leggatt. Cameron has recently stepped into the role of Executive General Manager of the residential business nationally, which is a pretty big business as I understand it. 40 odd projects, 350 plus staff, 18,000 and some change, lots in the pipeline. So a very big business, a lot of responsibility. Cameron, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here, Natasha.
Terrific. I guess we start in the obvious place. You've stepped into the role that Anthony Boyd has vacated to take on the role of Chief Financial Officer with the company. Pretty big shoes to fill. How does that feel? What's it like? And what are you focusing on?
Firstly, it's not easy, and I think that's a reflection of the great work that Anthony did as EGM. Look, it's exciting, it's daunting, it's got a huge amount of responsibility, but I do have a true passion for property, and travelling around the different states over the last couple of months and meeting the teams and seeing the projects, you can really see the passion and energy within the business, and so far so good. I'm enjoying it at this point in time.
How long have you been with Frasers?
So I joined Frasers in 2010. So next year it'll be 10 years.
And prior to that, you were with Macquarie.
Yeah, that's right. So look, sort of in a 30-second overview. Started life as a property valuer. Realised not a lot of people like property valuers, so then moved to Macquarie Bank, where I spent time in their property investment banking division. Worked here in Australia and over in the US, and then was fortunate enough in 2010 to join what was then Australand, working in the Queensland business and working on the Hamilton Reach project.
Okay. So you sort of mentioned there that property valuers, nobody really likes them. That makes them the parking attendants of the property industry, does it? Or?
A little bit. You look, it's a great grounding. You learn how to assess value and see value. And when you're in the role as a property valuer, you think you're the centre of the property universe. But I think as I sort of got my head up above the desk and looked at what you could do in this industry, and then you sort of combine that with the fact that you're never loved as a property valuer. You're a necessity. People are always criticising you. It's not an exact science. So, it's a subjective outcome and everyone's got their opinion. I'd studied a Masters of Finance as well, and I was just keen to explore different things. And look, I probably wasn't initially thinking, I'm going to become a developer or get into development. But that's something that grew over time. I went to Macquarie thinking, I want to do more financy, structured property plays. And then after spending time there, I sort of ended up working on a lot more development style transactions. And then I just loved it. I loved the fact that it was really tangible. It was more than just spreadsheets and numbers.
You build things.
Yeah, you build things. You see how people love things, the purchase process. To see an old derelict site come of age and then people using it, I just think that's one of the beauties of the job.
Yeah. I think that's the very great beauty of the job, and maybe it makes us all sound a bit like property nerds, but I'm happy to be a property nerd if that's what it means. As you say, to see something go from blank canvas or a disused site somewhere into this beautiful, functioning, vibrant community which people love. They love to live there. I can't think of much else that would be more exciting than that. You mentioned value. I'm going to come back to the valuation stuff because if you think about pricing and valuations, it's certainly been a really interesting year so far. The market's been pretty rocky in virtually every capital city. And even though I would say that we're tentatively seeing signs of improvement as the market finishes correcting itself after sort of a long period of being overheated, we're hit with this, and I'm using talking quotes, which you can't see because you're listening to a podcast, this construction quality crisis that, as the media likes to call it, that's hit the apartment sector. And could threaten, I think, to sort of derail or disrupt this recovery. What do you make of that crisis? Is it really a crisis? And how is Frasers dealing with it?
Yeah, geez, that's a good
There's
big question.
a lot in there.
Yeah, there is.
Take your time.
I'll step through it. I think, look, we are finally starting to see the floor come in under the market. Looking at the property market first and foremost, the values in both Sydney and Melbourne in the last couple of months have actually started to level out or actually have their first minor increases. So that's the first time both those markets have increased since late 2017. So it does feel like those first signs that, okay, some normality is coming back into the market is occurring. And I guess in our world, in Frasers, we've now started to see that play out as well. So in June, we had our best month in 2019 in terms of number of sales. And then in July, we've topped that again. So we've seen the lift in inquiry and the lift in sales numbers month on month over the last couple of months. So I'd love to sit here and go, geez, that new EGM's doing a great job. But that's really been a case of the federal election. And off the back of that, we've had a couple of interest rate cuts. APRA's loosened its lending criteria. We've had some tax cuts flow through. So there's been a bit of stimulus along the way.
Yep.
That's now flowing into the market.
Yeah.
You are correct, though, that then overlaying all that, we've had this, quality crisis. And it's been, to be honest, it's been mainly Sydney-centric. I think, there's no doubt that the Opal Tower and the Mascot Tower and just some of the coverage it's got has definitely extended into Queensland, Victoria and across over into WA. But the main focus has been around apartments and has been around Sydney. Look, I think it's there's no doubt that we're seeing as a company that some purchases, not all of them, some people are just going on and, they're buying apartments and it doesn't seem to affect what they're doing, whether they're looking at it and doing their own research and comfortable with then making the transaction. But we are seeing some buyers come in and they're asking a lot of questions. Okay, what does this mean? What are your processes? How are you dealing with it? So, I guess.
Do you see that as an opportunity?
Yeah, I think in all industries, not just property, unfortunately, you are only as good as the lowest common denominator in an industry. So. When something goes wrong, every developer is seen as in a certain bucket. And I think for someone like us and our business, which has really rigorous process, we've been around for a long time. We've got this international platform that gives us financial strength as well. And I guess through that, the time and the process, we've now got this culture around producing quality products that we believe we can exceed customer expectations with. So in an environment where there is a little bit more uncertainty and there may be, I think we'll see a bit of a flight to quality, I think that becomes a competitive advantage for us. And I'll tell you, look, I tell this story to a number of people and people within the business would have heard this, but the amount of times I've met people and, they find out you're in property and next minute you've got all the questions, would you buy on this street or what do you think of that? But you hear people say, look, I've bought an apartment, I've bought it off the plan. And I'll say, who's the developer? And a lot of people can't even answer that question. They've actually just fallen in love with the project, and the brochure, the marketing, what it is, the name. And they'll sit there and go, I actually I don't know. Which is, when you think about it, is when you're making this massive financial commitment to something, it's quite amazing. And then you'll be, later in the night, you'll be hearing them. They'll spend an hour trying to work out which restaurant they're going to go to on Saturday night. So
it's crazy, isn't it? Because I think it probably leads you to a place that confirms what we know, which is buying property is such an emotional decision, and that sometimes the rational part of you takes a back seat when you should be actually doing the homework and saying, is this a reputable developer? Have they built projects like this before? Can they deliver? Do they have the backing? And instead they're like, no, I just want to live here. It looks fantastic. So it really probably does go to prove that it's an emotional decision.
Right. People just fall in love with it and bang. It's, and maybe they'd probably try and post-rationalise once they've made the purchase, but yeah, they don't really do a lot of that, maybe thorough due diligence, because it probably takes a bit of the fun out of it, the emotion out of it. But
so how do you make that more interesting for a consumer? Because I would imagine too, given that it's such a big decision, it's also quite a complex decision, particularly if you've never built before or never bought before. How do you make the complex part of it, which is doing your homework, understanding all the ins and outs and then who the developer is and so on and so forth, how do you make that easier, more interesting?
I think that's our challenge now, to be honest. I think we'll see more buyers doing a lot more homework, and they will want the answers. And I think it's up to us to be able to provide them in a simple form, because it is a complex process, from buying a site to then running through the planning, all the inputs along the way. It's a diverse team that works across a development project. You've got engineers to salespeople to marketing people to customer care people to project managers, builders. It's got a really wide range of and diverse set of skills. So we, as a business, and we've got to be able to simplify that for the customer and then provide that in a format where it's easy to read, easy to understand. So I think that onus is on us. And look, if people do want to delve more deeply, we've also got to have the answers in that regard as well. So I think that's that's what we need to be focusing on going forward.
One of the things you mentioned there, amongst many things, was customer care. I saw a data point recently about what persuades people with which developer they should go with when they are thinking about buying property. And having dedicated customer care scored, I think, second highest out of a whole list of things, even higher than having a great master plan with all the amenities that you would expect. That was a real surprise to me initially, and then I thought about it, and I think maybe it's not so much of a surprise, and particularly in this climate that people are saying, well, the reputation of the developer is experienced by me as a customer by how good their customer care is. I know that Frasers customer care is very, very good. Can you talk a little bit about the role that they play and how you see them as being important in building the reputation of the business? Yeah,
this is an area that Anthony has brought a lot of focus on into the business. So, and the customer piece and making the customer the centre of everything we do. And that's where the live proud philosophies come from, and it's something that I really truly believe in, and it's it's somewhere, I guess it's one of the key things I want to keep evolving over the coming years. But one of the planks of the customer care piece has been implementing a really strong, well-resourced customer care team, and that's about, I guess, once a person does purchase a property, and that might be an off-the-plan property, which it is in most cases, there normally is a big duration in time between the point you sign and then the point the project gets delivered. And in the past, we've probably, many years ago, we've probably just had the elation of, wow, someone signed the contract, great, and then there's not a lot of, I guess, care and attention from that point onwards. So we've got these dedicated, highly skilled people within our business now that as soon as someone signs up, they're introduced, they become a single point of contact, and away they go. So anywhere along that journey, from the minute you execute a contract, you've got someone that you can call and you'll hear from, and they'll update you on how the project's progressing, how your particular block of land or your unit's coming along. And then as you lead into settlement, that correspondence and that communication then ramps up. So it's about supporting our customers all the way from inception to the point that we hand over. And then, look, obviously, more importantly, it's when they move into their residence. If there are any issues, bang, they can call someone. They'll respond quickly, and we can hopefully rectify it and close it out. So it's that full support network. And look, the the range of assistance or the range of care, it varies from customer to customer. Some people, they don't need much hand-holding at all. And then others will be helping them from the minute they sign that contract, assisting them all the way, helping them with finance, helping them with moving, helping them with all other, a range of matters until they, walk through the front door and say, yep, this is, I'm in my home now.
Yeah, I could see it would go a long way to providing the kind of confidence that people really crave when they make what is the biggest decision of their life. I want to move on a little bit from talking about customers and construction quality to the property market more generally, and some of the issues that affect property affordability in Australia: infrastructure spending, population growth, the rising toll of taxes and levies, an ageing population, and so on and so forth. What are your thoughts on creating a property market that works for more people, and what has to be done to get there? How much responsibility is there on the property industry as a sort of generally a private sector versus government?
Yeah, that's another good meaty question, and it's one that it's been around for a while now. It's I think you can see playing out in the markets that property for private consumption and development will continue on. And there's always property companies coming in to try and satisfy that need. And that hasn't perfectly worked for everyone. There's people at the edges, the social housing, there's affordability that plays into that factor. So, I do think it needs a concerted effort from both government and the private sector. And I think the reason that it's probably struggled to get wholesale traction is that they're very complex matters in terms of social housing, for example. It's complex. It's normally state based. It's you just can't tar it with a single, this is how we're going to do it, brush across the country. It's normally got a huge amount of stakeholders. So trying to align all those and get everyone saying, yep, that's the best outcome is not easy. And then you have change of governments, and then policies and agendas change. So, it's a space that Frasers, social housing in particular is a space that we would like to play more of a role in, and we've done quite successful projects. Carlton down in Melbourne is a social housing project that we've worked on with the Victorian government now for a number of years. We've just recently signed up to the Ivanhoe transaction, so that is a huge social housing project in Sydney and Macquarie Park. But they're specific state government-led projects where we have partnered with government, and everything's come together. Now, trying to roll that out across the country, it should be easy, right? And you sort of look at it and go, well, that makes sense. It's worked there. Why don't we roll it out in WA? Why don't we roll it out in Queensland? Why don't we roll it out somewhere else? But it's the complexities that come with it. So it's I think it's going to take it needs some brave policy and decision makers in the government side, and it needs people who on the private sector are willing to take the leap as well. So that's how we get the outcome. Yeah,
complex, takes time. And it's a project by project or an issue by issue sort of basis. Understood. So, Cameron, I didn't mention this in the introduction, but you're a Queenslander. And as I understand it, you led the team up in the Frasers Brisbane office through what was up until relatively recently a pretty wobbly property market. Things have been kind of flat up there. And yet you managed to keep the spirits of your team pretty high and loyalty to the business strong. On a previous podcast, we had your head of people and culture, Rana Alkadamani, in here, and she was singing your praises, although she didn't name you. So I'm outing you today as the head of that very cohesive team and culture that she was talking about. I'm really interested in how you managed to do that because, they say success has many fathers, but how did you manage to keep a tight team together and focused forward during, a period when times were pretty tough?
Yeah, it was a challenging market when I took over back in 2013. I actually became the GM of the Queensland BU. And look, a lot of the projects were struggling. Morale was probably ho-hum within the Queensland business. And look, for me, it was about getting a good core group of people around me. You can't do it on your own. And I've been fortunate enough up in Queensland that I've got a really strong group of diverse skill sets and people up in that business. And then it was about really breaking it back and keeping the message really simple about what we need to achieve. It was acknowledging that the market was tough and that, being open that the fact that we are going to have to work twice as hard here or 3 times as hard here to probably get half the result or, 3/4 of the result we would have got back in a good market. And when we did achieve that, whether that was like on some projects we might have said, let's just try and get 10 inquiries this week. And if we did that 4 weeks in a row, we really celebrated it. So really just trying to sort of reset what was good, what was a great outcome. So it was sort of getting, people feeling like, okay, I know how I can influence this. And it was all about the little 1%ers. It wasn't about one big lever. It was just, let's get all these little wins. So probably the first year or two, it was just sort of trying to get the momentum going. And then from there, look, once people did start getting these little wins, it had
self-perpetuating.
It had a snowball effect, and the wins started getting a bit bigger, and then from there, the culture started to improve. People were a bit happier, and look, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen that sort of really flourish. So, I've seen some people really develop over that time, and they're now leaders within that business themselves. So, I think. If I was, looking back over my career, I think some of my biggest learnings came when I was working in the US at Macquarie. We worked on a golf course development business. It was a joint venture with Macquarie and Greg Norman, and Medalist was the name of the business. It wasn't going well. This was pre-GFC. It was performing at what was probably an average level. And I was lucky to be over there with, some really talented people at the time. And they imparted on me probably 2 key things. And it was that apart from obviously keeping it simple, you need to, on a project, people really need to be able to articulate in that sort of 30-second elevator pitch, what is the vision? And that goes to the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, a really diverse set of skills work on a project. And there's no use having the sales team saying, we're trying to achieve this year, and then on the other side of the team, the construction team, saying we want to achieve this, or this is what the vision for the project is. So you need to articulate the vision, and then you need to be able to clearly say, this is our goals for the year, this is what we're trying to achieve. So each year in Queensland, we would be sitting down with all the projects, putting together our little visions and goals pack. We'd have everyone on the project that worked on it. We'd be constantly assessing those as well, looking for ideas from anyone. So trying to get that environment where some of the best ideas in a construction sense came out of salespeople and vice versa. Yeah. It was just trying to really rally the troops and get them, everyone working in the same direction. So.
Well, it sounds like a lot of really great lessons learned, great results, and presumably you'll be bringing the same sort of style to the new role as the Executive General Manager.
Try to.
Excellent. Well, I think that's probably all the time that we have for today. Thanks, Cam, for sitting in the booth today in the hot seat and talking about where you've come from, where you're going to, and some of the bigger issues that are affecting the property market right now.
Not a problem. Thanks, Natasha.
All right. So signing off from this edition of Frasers Perspective Podcast. Until next time, see you later.
See ya.